Hello, and welcome to the Pharmacist's Voice podcast, where we talk about pharmacy topics and careers so you feel connected to the profession of pharmacy and inspired to contribute to it, especially as a podcaster. I am your host and Ohio pharmacist, Kim Newlove. This is episode 299. My guest today is Mike Turajczyk, also known as Polish Mike. Mike is on a mission to promote integrative healthcare. As the founder of Polish Your Business, a leading healthcare marketing and branding agency, and Polish Your Life, an exclusive doctors networking group, Mike connects healthcare providers with the resources and strategies they need to thrive. A strategic consultant, networker, and thought leader, Mike offers tailored support and powerful connections to help practitioners grow their practices and deliver better patient care. To learn more, visit polishmike.com. As you listen to our conversation today, I want you to notice that Mike and I both enjoy helping people start podcasts. I specialize in audio podcasts, and Mike specializes in video podcasting. His specialty, video podcasting, earned him, a non-pharmacist, a spot on this show. I have been helping pharmacists start podcasts over the last few years, and I have noticed that some want to go the video route. I know how to make YouTube videos. In fact, there are some on my YouTube channel, but I don't specialize in video podcasting. I knew that I needed to build relationships with video podcasting experts that I could refer my students to. And that is how Mike ended up on the show today. We met through the 2023 Metapreneurs Summit, and this episode has been a long time coming. We've waited like a year to meet up and have this conversation and push it out as a podcast. I am so happy he's here today. I really like Mike, and I think you will too. He's very knowledgeable. If you want to go the video podcast route, you want to work with someone like Polish Mike. Again, he is a video podcast expert. During our conversation today, we cover a number of topics, but here's the short list of what we cover. We talk about the benefits of video podcasting. We talk about the services that Polish Your Business offers and a description of Mike's ideal client. We also talk about the areas of overlap between audio podcasting, which is my specialty, and video podcasting, which is Mike's specialty. And during our conversation, please note that we call this a gray area, but it is the overlap between audio and video. We also talk about where video files get uploaded. And here's a hint, it's not just YouTube. There are other options. Mike also offers words of encouragement for anyone who wants to start a podcast. And we also discuss the benefits of working with a team, including how it helps you stay in your zone of genius, which is where you want to be, right? We cover a lot in our 90-minute conversation. You might want to listen to this one with a notebook and a pen so you can take notes. Mike shares a ton of excellent advice. When you're done listening today, reach out to Mike or me if you'd like to start a podcast. Our contact information is in the show notes for episode 299 on thepharmacistvoice.com. Without further ado, here is my conversation with Polish Mike. Hi, Polish Mike. Welcome to the Pharmacist's Voice podcast.
Thank you so much, Kim. I'm very happy to be here. And just to mention, I have so much respect for what you do.
Thank you. Right back at you. I am not a video podcaster, but I know that that is what you help people with. So much respect to you for knowing how to do something that I don't.
Well, thank you. It also helps to have a good team because a lot of things I would like to know, but it's impossible to know everything. So some of these things are with my team's support. So I want to give the credit where the credit is due. They're amazing.
I appreciate that. Yes, I rely on other people as well. Not necessarily for my podcast, but let me tell you a story. A while back, I went to Europe back in May. And to get ready for that, I had to batch out my podcasts. And I had to reach out to a podcast editor for the first time in my whole entire life. And I was having some doubts, like, do I know how to find a person? And is this going to be the right person for me? Are they going to do a good job? Can I really go on this vacation? But I leaned into their expertise and gave them all the intros and outros and the interviews, and they put it together for me. And I got to go on the vacation and it was worry free. Everything came together. So sometimes we just have to find people we trust and listen to them. Would you agree with that?
I would 100% agree.
Yep. And admitting that I can't do it all myself sometimes is important for other people to hear because they don't know what's going on behind the scenes. And for
Of
you to say that
course.
you have a team, that helps them understand that you're not a one man operation.
Of course. I want to inspire everybody to focus on what they are passionate about, and then anything else that is only possible and easy to delegate. Find amazing people who just love the parts that you want to delegate to them, which means you're giving them value, you're giving them something to do that they really enjoy, and at the same time, you can focus on things that you're doing best.
That's right. Stay in your zone of genius, right?
That's right.
What is your zone of genius? What is it that you do at Polish Your Business?
Well, everything that we do revolves around promoting integrative healthcare. And I also want to define it to people the way that I understand it. Because integrative healthcare is one of these concepts, one of these things that a lot of people talk about and I think they don't really fully understand, and people get confused. Some people use that definition just to show that a chiropractor is renting a room to a nurse practitioner or to a medical doctor, and now they're suddenly integrative. That's not what I'm talking about. Integrative healthcare, in the definition that I like, is a way to practice healthcare that combines conventional medicine with complementary medicine in a coordinated way. And I think the key here is that coordination aspect, because many people know there are a lot of opportunities, and some people practice different elements of integrative healthcare, but I think there's not a lot of people coordinating it and helping providers coordinate what they need to coordinate to really have that integrative mindset become reality that helps the patient. So, how does it transfer to the answer to your question? What do we do at Polish Your Business? Is we promote integrative healthcare. And the way we do it is we focus on three things: marketing, branding, and business development. These three pillars, I think, are necessary for success of any healthcare practice and any healthcare provider. But people focus on the first one, marketing, without the second one, and I think that's a big mistake. Because if you do marketing and you have no brand image online, you have no brand reputation or no apparent strategy, it's ineffective. It could be frustrating, could be very expensive. And a lot of people just say that marketing sucks because, it's hard to do it. But sometimes problems with marketing is the symptom, it's not the problem. The problem could be they don't really focus on building a brand online. So we focus on branding and connecting the brand image online, which branding to me is the process of creating a feeling that will help people decide to choose you. So if we have that feeling and we are able to connect it to business development, practice development, to make sure that the goals that a healthcare provider has can manifest into reality, what's in between is actually marketing. So I see it, even though we always say we focus on marketing, branding, and business development. I see the two things that we do is we connect branding with business development, and the means through which we do it is also marketing.
You talked about branding and marketing. Those are two reasons that I started a podcast. I think podcasting is great for branding and marketing, but I think you take it a step beyond that. More than video podcasting, you offer other things, right? Can you
Of
talk a little
course.
bit about that?
Of course. So I always like to reverse the situation, and instead of looking from the provider perspective, because we support healthcare providers, right, we focus on helping them achieve what they need to do. And it's so easy for a healthcare provider to focus on what's important to them, and sometimes they can easily forget that they wouldn't have a practice if it wasn't for the patient. So what we really need to focus on, in my opinion, is how does it look like from the patient's perspective. So let's say you want to be discovered by that favorite ideal patient of yours. So let's reverse engineer that. Well, what's the best way to get discovered? Well, probably we need to be referred to that healthcare provider, because that's the easiest way to have a conversation that leads to a meaningful relationship. That's a big shortcut. But how do you get a referral? So you get a referral from a collaborating partner. Well, why would they refer to you? We need to find different strategies, and that's where our services are also very meaningful, because we need to give that other provider value, show our value to make sure that you get that referral. And then when it comes to what we offer to people, to healthcare providers, from the practical perspective, you need a lot of things to be done, because let's say that patient is looking you up on Google, and we can do an exercise that somebody listening right now, if you're listening, and you're really paying attention, because you can be listening and not paying attention. Let's say you're paying attention. Google, do an exercise. Google yourself, Google your name, and see what that patient currently sees online. Also, because it's 2024 going into 2025, why don't you ask ChatGPT 4.0 about yourself? See what the AI thinks is the value that you represent. Also, YouTube yourself, because YouTube is the second biggest search engine currently, right? So if we also YouTube our name, we're going to have a good idea if we even exist on the platform when there's a lot of attention. What about going to Instagram and just Instagram your name? Try to find yourself, see what people see, Facebook, etc. I don't want to go into details, but all the services that we provide are around promoting integrative healthcare, but the practical application is coming from the patient's perspective and how they will find you, and how all the content that they see online needs to lead to a conclusion. She is the right person for me. He is the right person for me, the right provider, the right doctor. And also do the same exercise with your practice name, because a lot of times your reputation may be slightly different than the practice reputation. So if there are two brands, my strong recommendation is doing that little exercise, seeing what people see, and just know that there are shortcuts to fix it and to create a really powerful brand image online without a lot of work from the provider's perspective.
I really respect and appreciate what you do. You are helping people meet their patients where they're at. Their patients are already on Facebook, so they're going to check them out. Their patients are on YouTube or they're on Google. Everybody Googles stuff. I love the Chat GPT idea because I just learned how to use that last year and I'm trying to get better at using it for practical things. I think what you recommended is very practical. If somebody in this world also uses Chat GPT, they might look you up on Chat GPT. So why not check that out? That's a
Of
great
course.
suggestion.
I'm looking at this from, I'm trying to always guess and anticipate what the future will bring. And what always wins is convenience. Look at Amazon, right? How convenient it is for people to have a one click and, something shows up tonight or tomorrow at my door. The same happened years ago with Google search. Instead of going to a library, I can just Google search. That's a revolution. But here's a big, big shift that is happening right now that not a lot of people are paying attention right now. A lot of people are going to be asking ChatGPT and other AI, language models to do the research, because otherwise they would have to Google, YouTube, go to all these platforms, go to websites. I would just ask ChatGPT, tell me about Kim Newlove. Tell me about her. What do you know about her? Is she good? Should I hire her? Why? These questions will give you unbelievable insight to what is currently out there that the AI can grasp. And when you see the insight, you also have so many ideas what you can improve. And I think this is literally the future of marketing that is completely missed. I literally had no single podcast or content that I heard about that somebody would be focusing on retraining or training or retraining to optimize for ChatGPT results and for AI results. And right now, just a hint to people, for people who want to experiment with this, right now you will see a little message that was not there even a few months ago. Memory updated. When you talk to ChatGPT, there is a way to train ChatGPT from your conversations. And even though none of us really knows how to do it, I think experimenting with this and researching with this can be very, very valuable for healthcare providers. So I want all of you to be discovered, because I know you have something that is very special, especially if you're thinking about podcasting. And I just want to give you shortcuts. And instead of researching your name and Googling your name, please do that, because I just told you to not do the exercise that I told you to do. So I realized the little problem with this. Also use AI to do the work for you.
I am going to chat GPT myself, as you call it, after this interview. I'm so curious now. Mike, I know that there are a lot of benefits of video podcasting. So that's one of the biggest reasons that I wanted you to be on this show. I help pharmacists start podcasts, but sometimes they don't want to do the audio podcast. They find out what's going on with audio engineering or finding a podcast editor, all the things that are involved. There's a lot of moving parts. So they decide, I want to do a video podcast instead. So let's talk about some of the benefits of video podcasting.
I think there is a ton, because video podcasting includes video and it also includes audio. Audio can be transcribed, so it also actually includes written text. Video podcasting also can be repurposed quite easily using either team members that you have internally or externally, or different AI tools that are available right now and improving all the time, because you can repurpose the full episode into shorter clips. You can repurpose as social media content and reels. So video podcasting allows to create a whole spectrum of content by just having a little bit of a rhythm to your marketing that is really focusing on key conversations that you want to have with people you love, like, trust, you're connected with, or you want to connect with. And then the same thing, the same podcasting can also serve you as a way to build your practice, to build your business, because many times we need to focus on how do we give value to other people instead of focusing on building our business. The only way to do it, I think, is by giving value to others. And video podcasting allows you to feature someone. If you feature somebody who is otherwise maybe inaccessible because they're busy, and if you say, hey, I just want to have a 1 hour conversation or half an hour conversation with you, Kim, well, Kim may say, I don't know you, Mike. I'm busy. And well, thank you for the offer. I'm not going to actually take you up on that offer. Or better yet, what happens typically is the message gets ignored and the provider gets frustrated, because there could be an amazing chiropractor who wants to connect with an amazing orthopedic surgeon next door. And both of them are busy, but the ortho may just not entertain the opportunity to have a conversation, to have a meeting. So podcasting also serves as a really important function in the practice development model, in my opinion, because it allows you to invite a collaborating partner, meet new people, give them a voice, talking about pharmacist voice.
You said my favorite word, voice. I love it.
Giving them that voice, just like Kim is giving me, and I appreciate it. So Kim is giving me value, and the same way you can use your podcast to give value to your audience, and also you can give value to the collaborating partner who is being featured. Another huge opportunity, we're talking about the benefits of doing a video podcast, is that podcast when it's repurposed. And let's say you're creating clips, social media clips, reels, shorts. These clips can be posted on Instagram collaboratively with the person who you featured. And that means for people who may not be so aware of how that function features, you can have multiple accounts displaying the same post at the same time and getting all the organic reach, engagement, comments in one place, which means that somebody who is just starting their branding process, and maybe that's you will be able to be on somebody else's social media feed featured because they just accepted a collaborative invite, and now you get the followers, you get the attention, and people will be asking, okay, who is this amazing person, Kim, who is featuring a healthcare provider, an awesome pharmacist, and maybe they will just click on her profile and land on her profile. So that's another way to be discovered. Podcast, video podcast can also serve, just like audio, can also serve as a way to educate people on the value that you provide. And I think this is one of the primary functions of the podcast, is for people to really experience you and connect with your mission, connect with your passion to help people. And it's an easy one, because when you have to record a video that is educating the public, it almost feels like you need to give a speech to a big crowd and people freeze. But when they talk to a friend, or somebody who may seem like they're a good friend because they are having a great conversation, even though they just met, because it could be two providers talking, acupuncturist and pharmacist, right? You can have a great conversation about a specific subject. That conversation can be extremely easy for you to do, but now the benefits are following this. Another thing is the business development, practice development, because of referrals. Because that provider, if you give them a lot of value and you feature them, can be much more likely to refer to you, especially if they don't have another collaborating partner that does what you do. Or maybe they do, but they didn't give them the value or the voice, like Kim would say, right?
Right.
The last thing that I would add here, and it's really not the last benefit, but I just want to give a bullet point list here that is not too long. The last one to focus on is the podcast can also be monetized. The monetization of the podcast, in my opinion, should be done completely differently than most people think. So people are thinking about monetizing it in the traditional way. And if you want to do it, you are setting yourself up with a new podcast to be disappointed, because you don't have the audience yet. You don't have the power that you deserve to have. I know, but you don't have it yet. And that's the reality. So how can you monetize your podcast, in a way that is going to be very effective for your business model, but at the same time doesn't rely on key ways to monetize the podcast in a traditional way? I think affiliations, affiliated links, featuring a product, having your own affiliated link that even if you send it to a few people and they buy it with your affiliated link, the good thing is it could be connected to your affiliate center that you may have on your website, which is just lots of tools and resources for the success of your target audience. So you save them time on research. And at the same time, the podcast can feature a collaborating partner who happens to be the owner of the company that you're connected with. So that can move the needle on the business development side much more, without setting the podcaster up for disappointment, but actually giving measurable results that are so rewarding, and it feels like a lot of fun.
Those were a lot of knowledge bombs you just dropped. That was awesome. You talked about the benefits to the audience and also the benefits to the podcaster, which I appreciate you bringing up both. One of the reasons, well, two of the reasons that I started a podcast was for networking and relationship building. And you talked about that right up front. You were talking about collaborating with other, in your case, integrative healthcare providers, so that it's not just a meeting, it's let's record this and let's put this out there so both of our audiences can consume it and hopefully come make an appointment with us for whatever service we provide. That's awesome. And then you're also building a relationship with the audience where they liked what you said the first time, they're going to come back the second time. And it could be to see the host, it could be to see the guest on their platform too. There's a lot of great things. I know that monetization is not exactly the most important thing about podcasting. And I like that you kind of put it at the end, because I don't think we should all be starting podcasts to generate income. But there are some ways that you can generate income. And I love that you brought up the affiliate links, or basically selling other people's stuff. I recommend microphones all the time. I am not an affiliate for Sweetwater or Amazon.com or so many other different places that I could be. But you have now planted the seed that, hey, since you're going to have a podcast anyways, you could become an affiliate and put those links in your show notes. Great examples. I love everything that you were talking about. Thank you so much. Knowledge
Well,
bombs.
thank you. Well, thanks so much. And I want to always look for practical things that are answering people's questions. So the questions that we get is, for example, how can I start a podcast that is going to help me grow my business? And I always tell people that we need to have, like Tony Robbins says, let's turn our expectations into appreciation and our life will change forever, right? So I practice this every day. And I also see that a lot of people are really having very high expectations, especially to the podcasting as a tool to monetize and to grow their business. And I think the expectations have to be set at a realistic level. And when I started telling that to people, that this is something that you do that is going to grow over time, is going to increase the value of your brand, is going to help you network with people, provide value to the community, to your target audience, to the collaborating partners, all the amazing benefits. And also will allow you to practice, if you're doing a video podcast, will allow you to practice being comfortable on camera, being comfortable saying certain things, and will save you a ton of time producing content because it can be repurposed. Even with all these benefits, sometimes the question, unfortunately, was circling back. Okay, but how do I monetize it? So I want to tell people to focus maybe on two things. One is, if you're already recommending microphones and some of them could be found on Amazon, why don't you have an Amazon affiliate link? You won't make a ton of money, but why not get a little bit tiny percentage from all the sales? And I think it's very fair, as long as we disclose it to people, as long as we are honest, and we tell people that I'm sending you the affiliated links that we have. I think that's great. And another way, and not a small one, this is actually the primary way, I think, referrals. Because we should not forget that when a patient comes to a pharmacy office, right, or to a pharmacy practice, that patient is also connected to the business model. And that referral is both very valuable for the mission and for the willingness to help change people's lives. That's so important, but it's also part of business development. So referrals are definitely another way that podcasts can be, let's call it, monetized.
I agree. Definitely. Thank you for talking about those benefits of video podcasting. I especially like the repurposing of content because I don't know about you, Mike, but I spend a lot of time on my podcast and it's nice when I can repurpose it. I can use it for social media posts. I'm kind of limited. I don't have that video element. So I feel like video podcasting has its advantages too.
For sure. And it's always my pleasure to share what's new, because the beautiful thing that is happening all the time is innovation. That's both on the clinical models and clinical side. It's also on marketing, business development, branding side. There are different tools. At the beginning, these tools were not so good. And I was the first person to tell people, hey, that's not going to replace a team member. And to a certain extent, a team member needs to be there. But for people who either cannot afford to have a team member, or maybe would like to try certain things themselves, these tools are very powerful right now. So you can use AI supported tools to repurpose your podcast. Yes, it's not going to be perfect, but what is perfect in life, right? Sometimes the perfection is in the imperfection. And I think that this is also something to keep in mind, that the repurposing aspect of having a video podcast saves you a lot of time, saves you a lot of money, quite frankly, and it allows you to do marketing in a way that actually feels like fun and actually it becomes fun.
You have to start somewhere, and you don't always feel 100% confident and like you're doing it right the first time. And I would love for you to talk about that for anybody who's thinking about jumping into the pool, so to speak, like, hey, come on in, the water's fine, like it's okay to start this. Talk about what it's like for some of the people that start working with you. What are some of those limiting beliefs that you have heard from your clients?
There are some very common challenges that we all have. And these challenges are not only for healthcare providers, but I think it's part of human nature, that things that are easy for somebody who has done X, Y, and Z already are going to be extremely tough and maybe even unbelievably hard to do from the perspective of somebody who never tried it. So number one is the resistance to change, because I always have done things a certain way. I never wanted to do all these new, strategies. I just wanted to help my patients. And I am if people only knew how valuable I am, they would come to me as a pharmacist, right? As a doctor, as a practitioner, as a practice, as a company, if they only knew. And I don't want to do all these things. So number one is just knowing that we need, like you said, Kim, we need to start somewhere. And I think we need to also start the easy way. The hard way is what people typically think of, is that they need to do it all themselves, because now I need to record, I need to find topics, I need to get feedback from people what they want to listen to. Do I do video with this camera, or do I buy another camera? Do I need to worry about the gear? How do I look? What about my bags under my eyes? What about my crooked nose? What about this and that? So many things and so many blogs, and these are the very common challenges that people have when it comes to video podcast. And the funny thing is that most of these things, on the other side, when there is a patient who needs your support, they don't care about my nose, they don't care about rosacea that I have, right? They don't care about this, even though for me it could be a limiting factor. So I think number one is we need to focus on the person that we are doing this for much more than we are focusing on ourselves. And it all comes down to mindset. What is the mindset about going forward? What does it mean that I'm trying to start this podcast? Does it mean that I am suddenly going to become a celebrity? Well, it's not easy to tell you the truth, but likely you're not going to become a celebrity tomorrow. You're not going to get these thousands of views tomorrow. It's going to be a limited number of views at the beginning, and gradually it's going to go. But the only way that we can start a podcast like this is by going step by step and adjusting the strategy there was at the beginning. Maybe there was just an outline of a strategy. You can adjust it as we go. So some of the challenges that people have will definitely include this, imposter syndrome, right? A lot of times people in general feel like they're a hidden gem, especially healthcare providers. And it's so frustrating that they almost don't want to talk about it. They don't want to talk about what they do because people should magically appear in their office and they should know, because I'm better than the guy next door. And it becomes really frustrating for them to see that the guy, let's say the doctor who is next door to another doctor, is doing all these marketing tricks, and the better one who has no brand online is just frustrated. How motivated are they to start? They usually are very demotivated, because I'm not going to be like him, I'm not going to be as good, I don't have a team, I don't have this. That's a really big limiting factor that can be actually so easy to turn around to a positive. So if you feel like a hidden gem, you have something for your patients, for your clients, something to offer that is very unique, I think we need to just start the process of showing people your value and start delivering that value in a way that they can experience it step by step. So that's one of the challenges. Another one would be that people say, I don't have a powerful network. Where will I get all the guests? Where are they? And we don't realize that sometimes it's the people who are around us that can be the starting point of the podcast to have conversations. Myself and Kim, we know each other. We don't know each other as well as good friends know each other, but podcasting can actually get you closer to people. So I think this is a really good tool to have a meeting that you don't have time to put on the calendar. Now you can have it about a subject that is also very valuable to your audience. Another thing to keep in mind is people say, I don't have a team. I have to do all these things myself. Well, sometimes you can use AI tools, sometimes you can use different editing tools and learn it yourself. But ideally, try to delegate as much as possible to team members who will be able to do things they love to do and just get your podcasting going much, much, much faster. Some people don't have a high level strategy and they cannot really picture where the podcast fits in the business development, in the practice development, in the messaging, in my mission. So I would encourage everybody to have at least a draft of a high level strategy where the podcast becomes a very valuable tool for networking, for content production, for certain things that need to be said to your clients or patients to also save you time, because people only look usually at the time investment in the podcast, not really looking at the time saving benefit. But if I can send a podcast interview to someone who has a question that is answered during the podcast, that is kind of cool because it saves me time. And I think that's another way that we can look at this. People focus on so many excuses not to start instead of starting. So you can tell me, Kim, from your experience when people try to start an audio podcast, what are some of the common challenges that maybe I didn't say, but you would like me to address as well?
100% audio engineering is the hardest thing I think that everybody keeps complaining about, because there's so many different audio engineering programs out there and people learn in so many different ways. Some people like to trial and error their way into proficiency. Some people like to read the owner's manual. They like paper and they like reading it. Some people like to get a self-paced online course and go through it and keep pausing things and trying things and keep going like that. Some people like to join Facebook groups. There's so many different ways to learn. So not only are there a dozen or more different audio engineering programs, but there's so many different ways to learn how to use them. And people don't understand. They need to set a goal. It goes on and on forever. I mean, they'll put off making their podcast for 2 years. I've had somebody that I've been working with for, I think, almost 2 years, still has not produced an episode. No shame, no judgment, but I know that that is the hangup. So, yeah, I would say audio engineering for sure intimidates people. But now that I've made relationships with podcast editors and concierge podcasting services and then video podcasting professionals like yourself, I can refer them out and say, why don't you test those waters? Because it doesn't matter to me if I'm the person who helps them start the podcast or not. It just matters that they get their message out there and they're helping people. So, as much as I would like to be the person that helps them, sometimes I recognize that hang up, which is audio engineering, and I realize, you know what? Audio podcast, it's not for you. And that's really why you're here today, because I want to make sure they know that you're out there. Other things they get hung up on are content, of course, and creating a production schedule. I think production schedules are very, very important. You need to have, if you're going to do a monthly show, you need to plan out what those are about. And if you need to invite your guests, you have to interview them in time to make your deadline. There's so many moving parts. Having a production schedule is very important and often overlooked. So thanks for the question, Mike. Back to you.
Oh, yes. Um, audio engineering. This, I don't want to say that it's less important than people think, because it's not. If you have a professional podcast like yours, if you have a professional platform, you want to sound professional, both the equipment and the post-production audio engineering are gonna be critical. They're gonna be really important. Also, editing it, because you want somebody to edit it in a way that makes sense, and the guest actually may expect you to edit it in a way that maybe cuts out certain imperfections that are there. Some of them in podcasting format are completely okay to keep, but there may be something that they said that it's just necessary to be removed. So yes, audio engineering can be a challenge. But now I'm going to throw a little bit of a curveball to people who are just starting. I don't think, if you are just starting, I don't think you're at a level that you have to worry about this. You can, if you know you're going to start a professional podcast that just has to sound right, then of course. But if you just want to test different things, like Kim said, I think it's not a bad idea to try to find the least resistance type of a path to start. And it could be as simple as inviting a collaborating partner. It could be your friend for a Zoom meeting. So you meet on Zoom, you pick a topic that you know is valuable for your audience and it's valuable and relevant to your guest and to you. And you have a conversation. It can be a lot of fun. You recorded it. You didn't worry one bit about anything. You stop the recording, and guess what? Now you have your podcast. You just started your podcast. Yes, the podcast is not even published. All right, well, now you can have somebody publish it, or you can publish it. Well, I didn't sound professional. Yes, you didn't sound professional, so you know what to improve. But the conversation was not structured in a way that I want my podcast to be structured. True. Now you know what to improve in the structure of your podcast. But, I don't know if I really gave enough time to my guest because I wanted them to shine and I was focusing a little bit too much on myself. Okay. Well, next time when you have the next guest, you will give them more time and you will let them shine because podcasting is to feature other people, not yourself. And maybe, let's say, worst case scenario, everything was terrible. The audio was terrible, the video was terrible, the topic didn't go well. And, in the middle of the podcasting interview, what happened is there was a technical glitch and something, basically everything that could go wrong went wrong. Guess what? You still started your podcast. The first episode, you're not going to publish, but the next one, you already have the points of reference on what to improve. So I want to show people how easy it possibly could be to start a podcast and adjust the strategy as you go. Progress over perfection. While the next person or your friend who you mentioned was waiting 2 years to publish the first episode, in 2 years, somebody could be 17 or 50 steps ahead and experimenting with a lot of different things and getting the quality better, the strategy better, and be so much ahead. And possibly when the other person is starting the podcast with everything figured out, and by the way, it's almost impossible to figure out everything. So just spoiler alert, it's impossible to start perfectly fine. Then I would probably suggest that the first person who started 2 years earlier is probably better off, even though they didn't have the strategy to start with.
I like what you said before. What is it? Progress over perfection.
Mm-hmm.
That's so true. I like to compare it to preparing for a 5K race. Nobody sees you training for that 5K. They just show up to the race to cheer you on, right? So, what I'm saying is, nobody ever sees your practice episodes when you're a podcaster, much like nobody sees you train for a race, or at least I don't think they're watching. People aren't. So, if you can use that comparison, it lets you off the hook for doing something with those episodes. You can trash them. You don't ever have to publish them. You should, at minimum, though, listen to the playback and learn from them. That's my suggestion. What do you think, Mike?
I think that's spot on. The key is to start, to calibrate the mindset, to start with a smile, to be positive about it instead of, some people just really are so crippled by all the things or some of the things that don't really matter. And you know what's the most important? If you're listening to this and you know deep inside, you have something to offer to the world that people should know about. It's our responsibility to try. It's our responsibility to do something. It may not be perfect at first. And like Kim said, you may not even publish the first episode or the first episodes. Not only that, let's say you publish them and you did the whole series of 10 and you're like, that's just not on par with my standards now. You could re-record them. It's so flexible as you go. I just want to encourage people to embrace the challenges, know that they are certain. That's for sure that challenges are going to come, and really focus on the benefits. And not only benefits to you, because sometimes it's easier for us to sacrifice the benefits that are for us than the benefits to somebody who needs you. So if you're a pharmacist and you know certain things that are so valuable to people, and you can do so many things that are valuable to people, and you don't have a line of clients or patients or collaborating partners knocking on your doors, metaphorically speaking, or maybe in real life, then I would suggest do something to change it.
All good points. I like what you were saying about keep at it. Keep at it.
And you mentioned content ideas or content production schedule. Sometimes it could be very, very easy because we can always start with, for example, frequently asked questions, right? So if you know if questions are in fact asked frequently, they're very likely to be relevant. So the podcast topics could be frequently asked questions that you receive all the time. Oh,
Yes.
I didn't know what pharmacogenomics is. Okay, well, let's record a podcast episode because for me it's ABC, and for somebody else maybe it's not, and it could be almost rocket science, right? When you think about these things, or combining medications. And of course I know that the side effect of this one and combining this medication with that medication may be a completely wrong strategy, and it's ABC in pharmacy. But guess what? Your client or patient may have no idea about the things that are ABC to you. So frequently asked questions could be a very easy way to find content ideas, what to record about. In terms of what we could record about as well, is the time saving benefits for things that you want to educate people on. For example, a chiropractor may be talking about when to use ice or heat, because some people say use ice, some people say use heat, and good chiropractors will tell you it depends. It depends how recent the injury was, and it also depends on some other factors, and it depends on this, and it depends on that. What about recording a video podcast with somebody else who could be a physical therapist, who could be an acupuncturist, and now just having a conversation about it? It's a fun way to deliver the message, and it can also be clipped, because certain messages that are 1 minute or less, for example, could be YouTube shorts, and that could be easily sent to a patient. Say, hey, here's Dr. X explaining if you should use ice or heat and when. So I want to inspire people to not focus on making everything perfect in the structure of the podcast, and have a schedule that just has to be perfect. And if my weekly podcast doesn't have that weekly episode, everything falls apart. It's not falling apart, because people on the receiving end, unless you have a really established platform and you promise people that you're going to be posting once a week or once a month or whatever your schedule is, they don't expect you to publish it on that day. And if you didn't publish for any reason, it's still better to record the following week and go back to your schedule, instead of thinking that maybe everything stops because suddenly your Saturday episode didn't show up or the person didn't show up. So I just want people basically to know that it is okay to relax, and it's okay to smile, and it's okay to have a good mindset about it.
When it comes to not publishing on a schedule, I agree with you. Having good content is way more important than just showing up on the day and time that you said you were. With my show, I show up every week, at least once a week, and I publish on Fridays. It's just what I do. And it's become so easy for me. It's unless I'm deathly ill, it's going to happen, right? But as you get started, that's what we're talking about. You were talking about some of the barriers to people getting started, and being afraid to consistently meet a schedule could be a barrier for some people mentally. But I love how you have this recurring theme of remember what's in it for the audience, show up for the audience, be brave because they want to hear from you. I love those recurring messages that you were bringing up. Thank you.
Of course. There is one story that I wanted to say here to the person listening, because it helped me so much that I just want that one person listening right now to experience what I experience, and maybe they're going to also get the same type of support from that story. So I was on a public relations, public speaking course, and I was watching this amazing speaker. He was a doctor, very accomplished. He was so confident. He was just owning the crowd. He was owning the stage. And I'm like, oh my God, it's kind of like a Tony Robbins type of confidence. Amazing. And then he says that his first presentation, he had everything prepared. He walked into the room and he saw the people sitting, and he went to his laptop with this little clicker, and he couldn't turn because he just froze. He didn't have the guts to turn around and face the audience. So, what he did with trembling voice, he read the slides. He read every single slide, waited until the end, and after the presentation was done, he still didn't turn around. And then he was listening to people leaving. He said that internally he felt, and I also imagined this. So some of the things that I'm telling you, it could be how I imagined what he told me, how I received it, because it was a few years ago. So he hears all the people leaving. And then finally he turns around, knowing that it was the biggest failure. He turns around and there is one elderly person still sitting. He goes to her and he says, "Why didn't you leave?" And she says, "I finally know why I have headaches." She became a patient. He helped her a lot. And he said, even if you mess up completely, you can still help one person. So if we focus on one person, just one person that we can help with, just like I'm focusing on you listening to this, maybe it's you that that message is designed for, that is meant for. And you get inspired and you say, you know what, I can help one more person. If people had this type of a mindset, it takes away a lot of pressure internally that I have to be perfect because it's hard to mess up more than he messed up. And he became so good. And then he said, I'm going to tell you a secret. I'm still to this day stressed out like crazy. He took off his jacket because he looked very professional in his jacket and he was sweating like crazy. And he said, I just learned to live with it. It was so funny.
Feel the fear and do it anyway, right?
That's right. That's right. It was very, very helpful for me. And it actually helped me have a very different mindset about marketing because it's all about helping that one person at a time that is listening.
I like that mindset. And thank you for sharing that because, like I said before, there are people out there who need to know that somebody's waiting to hear that message. And that if they can just be brave enough to step up to the mic or the camera, whatever the case may be, they get to share that message and they get to help that one person who was remaining in those seats and waiting to hear what that person had to say and get help for their whatever it was, their headache, it sounds like.
That's right. Yeah. It's seriously, it's quite amazing because our internal world is very different when we compare it to how people perceive us. We think they are focusing on certain things, but if somebody is really there for you to help them, your client, your patient, your potential collaborating partner, their focus could be completely different. And by the way, there is no way that we can figure out what's in the head of somebody listening or watching you. And we shouldn't. That's not our job. Our job is just to do what we think is the right thing to do at a given moment, do our best with great mindset, with great intentions. And if there is somebody in the audience who says, you know what, I want to connect with this pharmacist in your case, right? That's amazing. She seems like she's the right person for me. Then magic can happen as a result.
Yes, absolutely. When it comes to video podcasting, I know that there may be people listening to this today who are like, yes, this is my guy, Polish Mike. I am an integrative health pharmacist. I want to work with Polish Mike. Who's your ideal client and how do they work with you?
I want to start with integrative definition again. So I'm not expecting people to already have all the therapies as part of their practice, and that's not really who we are looking for, is somebody who has everything figured out already and integrative in a sense that all the technologies and all the collaborating partners are already lined up, because if they have everything figured out already, why would they need us? Why would they need connections, strategies, and support? What I'm really focusing on is that mindset of integrative healthcare, being open to collaborating with others, being open to incorporating different clinical modalities, et cetera, et cetera. And in our case, how we define our, ideal client, we call that person Dr. Awesome. And I told my team, who is Dr. Awesome? Let's think about. Who is Dr. Awesome, that ideal client that shows up? Dr. Awesome is a visionary healthcare provider who is on a mission to help a lot of people. Visionary. That's really important because without a vision, we can't help them with their vision. But if somebody is a visionary, even if that vision is not really well defined yet, and the mission may not be as crystal clear as it could be, we can help with all these things. But it's the type of person that we are looking for is somebody who has a vision that will allow them to help a lot of people. They don't know how to do it yet, or they know how to do it. But that's the number one thing for us as a team. They need to have that integrative mindset, which again, being open to collaborate with other people, being willing to admit that seeing them as a practitioner is not the end, right? It's not, they don't have all the answers because there is no doctor who knows it all. There is no pharmacist who knows it all. If we team up with other professionals, that's definitely much better. So, integrative mindset. Typically, our ideal Dr. Awesome is 35 years old or more. And the reason for that is that usually we want people to experience quite a bit. We want them to have the value that we can polish and show to the world, right? And when we are just starting and we don't really know what we want, sometimes it's hard for me to help with the very, very beginning, and it's easier for me to help on a strategic level with somebody who already has some direction that they want to go. However, there are some exceptions to the rule. We've worked with some people who are at the beginning of their journey with great success as well. But when we talk about the ideal Dr. Awesome, they already tried a few things and they can actually appreciate a very different approach because they tried other approaches as well. Growth mindset is another thing that is very important for me, because if somebody has growth mindset, they're going to be much easier to help. Good communicator. We can coach people how to do videos. We have amazing video producers who can meet virtually or in person, coach people. But if somebody is naturally a good communicator, that's very important for us. So being a good communicator, providing a unique service or would like to find a unique angle to their service. So sometimes the service may not be unique. It could be pharmacist, could be chiropractor, could be marketing guy, Polish Mike, right? The service is not unique if you only look at the word that is describing what you do. But maybe there is a very unique angle that you want to find about what you do that makes you very unique. We can help with that. But I think it's very, very important. Understands the value of building a brand. So our Dr. Awesome comes to us. Maybe they already have a very well established brand and they appreciate the value of their brand and they want to protect it and build on top of it. Or maybe there is no brand yet and we need to help with that. Understanding the value of building the brand is very important for us. That also increases the value of the business of the company long term, and it can travel with the company even way beyond the founder. Being open to recording videos or having key staff that can record. So it doesn't have to be that you, as the founder or owner, you have to record everything yourself, but having a spokesperson who is close to you, who can be willing to record, I think that would be very, very good. Dr. Awesome is coachable. Even if they are very, very successful, they are coachable. They're open to feedback because there are things that they know how to do, and that's why they're Dr. Awesome. But there are also some things that we know how to do. And if we can give feedback and the person is open to feedback, that's very important for us. I also have a bullet point here: practice law of attraction. That's what I do. I practice law of attraction every day. And it helps me because I know that if I do something right now, sometimes the value is going to come back to me later. And it's okay. And it couldn't come back to me from a completely different angle. So I don't have any expectations. Zero. I just appreciate what is. And then the value shows up from another perspective. So if somebody has this type of a mindset and knows what law of attraction is, that's a big plus for us. And the last one that I have here is our bullet points for ideal client, Dr. Awesome. he or she doesn't have a great strategy to capture their value and show it online. Doesn't have a great strategy to capture their value, show it online. That's where we can help a lot.
I like how specific you are about your ideal client. I love the law of attraction. I think that it's amazing. And I helped my husband once upon a time write a job description for the job that he wanted, and he eventually got it. But it's so funny how you write it down and you put it aside for a while and you just believe that it'll eventually come to you. And it did. It's amazing. So I love that you brought that up because I think more people need to read that book, the law of attraction. I can't remember who wrote it. Michael Mosier, was that? I think.
So for me, the blueprint for this is The Secret.
The movie. Yes.
The
I like that
Secret. So
movie.
there are so many people talking about law of attraction and practicing law of attraction. Everybody can have their own angle. The main thing that I think that is very important for people to know in marketing, branding, business development, in personal life, overcoming challenges, is that we will always get what we focus on. We find what we're looking for. So if you look for excuses, you will find plenty of them. If you look for imperfections and reasons not to start, you will find a lot of them. And nobody, and for sure not me, I'm not here to convince anyone about doing anything. But if people are looking for the positive, they're focusing on the positive, and they focus on lessons and solutions, I think that the life can get much, much easier. I want to just tell people something that may be important for all kinds of challenges, not only starting a podcast. My daughter had a challenge, okay, a problem. And I was trying to explain to her how important it is and how we can to have problems and how we can easily have a very good mindset about problems. Because the way that I see it is that we need to have a lot of check marks in our life to really be resilient, to really be powerful, to really be confident. But how do we actually get the check marks in the area that we are not confident in? That could be podcasting for you. That could be marketing for you, branding. So I told my daughter this. She's 10 years old. So I was trying to find a simple analogy. I said, you know how check mark looks like, right? It has this line that goes down and it has this line that goes up. When there is a problem, look at it as a challenge, and you're going to go down to a little bit of a dark place, bad emotions. And as you're going down in this problem and you have frustration and all kinds of emotions that are there, you just focus on one word that is on this line: lesson. What's the lesson from this? What's the lesson? Oh, maybe I shouldn't do this again. Maybe that was not a good decision. Maybe I'm going to draw this conclusion. Whatever the lesson is, it's hard to focus on anything else. Just focus on the lesson. And as you're ready to get out of it with that second line of the check mark that goes up to success, you focus on one word that is on that line: solution. What's the solution? Lesson and the solution. And I told my daughter, and I think that so many adults also need to hear it. And I need to keep repeating it to myself, quite frankly. All right, Mike, you have a problem, Polish Mike. What lesson is coming from this, right? So I'm listening to like all the thoughts, and I said, I know what lesson. It's sometimes it's very clear if we are looking for it, right? That's the lesson. Now I know. Now am I ready to apply a solution? Yes. Okay. What's the solution? Boom, and I have a check mark. And I want people listening to this to also think about approaching challenges, podcasting included, with a similar mindset. You just need a lot of check marks to be successful.
I like that. Thank you for clarifying what the law of attraction means to you.
And this is kind of like the extension of the law of attraction. Law of attraction, of course, you put out what you feel is the best positive thing that you can put out, and then without any expectation, you just know that what you put out is going to come back, sometimes from a different angle, sometimes from a different person. That's why I have zero stress when I do something and somebody is supposed, let's say it's a client meeting, that could be very relevant to people who start or have a pharmacy, independent pharmacy business. You have a client and you expected that client to sign up because you did everything right. Listen, sometimes even if you do everything right, It may not be the right client for you. It may not be the right timing for you, and it's okay. So I have no expectations because I know that if I do the right thing and I do it over and over again, it will come from another angle sometimes. And sometimes it may not even come to me. Maybe my daughter will have a good day at school. That's okay. To me, that's law of attraction in its finest.
Thank you for sharing that, Mike.
You're welcome.
Going back to the basics, we talked about your ideal client and you help them with videos, right? Video podcasts is kind of our topic today. I wanted to ask you, when somebody has a video podcast, I always assume that's going out as a YouTube video. Is that correct?
It doesn't have to be YouTube. I think it should be YouTube at this, 2024, it should be YouTube. But there are people who will have, for example, very controversial topics on their podcast. Maybe they should choose Rumble versus YouTube. So I don't want people to think that automatically video podcast equals YouTube. Maybe X or Twitter is going to do something in the near future to bring long form content at a scale that YouTube has, and maybe that's going to be the best platform. So right now, 2024, end of September today, when this is released, it could be October, for example, November, when we are recording this podcast, I think uploading this video podcast on YouTube is a very, very good place. From YouTube, I would strongly recommend that there is a strategy to repurpose it on different platforms. And also, the video file should be saved somewhere else in case, because that's where risk management comes into play. Sometimes there could be a mention of something in the video, and your YouTube video could literally disappear because unintentionally you violated the guidelines. And the video may not be available even for you to download. If you didn't have the file, there is a problem. So make sure you save the files to upload them to different platforms in the future if you need, and also have a strategy to have that podcast or the echo of this podcast in clips and reels and shorts on other platforms as well.
Good advice. Thank you for sharing that, the location of the video with me. I assumed YouTube, and you clarified that. I don't even know what Rumble is. Is that a website then? Or is, I know, I don't
Well,
know anything, Mike.
Rumble is a video platform that is parallel to YouTube, growing very fast, and it does not have the same restrictions as YouTube when it comes to content moderation.
Is that Rumble with a U or Ramble?
You're asking the Polish guy to spell it, so be careful. Rumble, Rumble.
Oh, okay. All right.
I think if you ask ChatGPT or Google, you will have no problem finding it.
You're already giving me more to do. Right after this, I'm going to chat GPT myself. Now I can do that too. Okay. Yeah, I can look that up. And thank you. Thank you. I was just curious, when you talk about a YouTube podcast, where do you put it? Because I know that when I put an audio podcast out, I upload it to what I call my media host. And I use a company called Libsyn, which you can find at libsyn.com. And they distribute it to all the podcast players for me. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and all the rest. Now, I guess I should ask you, is that something that you're able to do too? Can you take that video podcast and upload it to a media host and syndicate it to all of the podcast players too?
Absolutely. And I think this is a really big benefit of having a video podcast to start with, because it allows you to already have the momentum of also building your audio platforms. And when the time is right to have the proper audio engineering and to have the proper setup for the audio platforms, I will, especially if it's a referral from Kim, I will bounce back to you and make sure that we have a very, very good collaboration when it comes to who is doing what. In this case, what I would say is we would probably handle the video aspect of it, and we'll let you handle the audio aspect of it. The one thing that we would need to do is export the audio file to you, master the audio file to the best possible quality that is available, and then you could either yourself or one of our team members can do it as well. But yes, that's very important. Also on YouTube, there is a new function, or relatively new function, that you can turn a YouTube playlist into a podcast, which a lot of people don't know about. It gives
I don't know about
additional.
this.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know about this. Some people have a YouTube channel that is literally just a strip of videos and showing, just 6 thumbnails and that's it. You can utilize something that is called YouTube home screen. So on the top, there should be the channel artwork that also has to be sized properly because on mobile devices, it shows up very differently. There could be different links from that YouTube channel. There could be a video trailer for the YouTube channel that is pinned on the top and displays to new visitors and to returning visitors. And you can also customize who is seeing what. And also, there could be different playlists on the bottom. One of them could be your popular videos. One of them could be, for example, brain fitness podcast, like the podcast we did with Dr. Porter. And there's a playlist with all the episodes. There could be another playlist, educational episodes, onboarding videos, etc., etc. So that YouTube channel can suddenly become a really beautiful place for people to have access to information that you provide. And on the bottom, you can also put shorts. Each playlist can also be turned into a podcast with a very simple function change. The only thing you need to do is upload a square graphic that is going to represent that playlist as a podcast, and suddenly automatically YouTube is going to distribute it in the audio format as a podcast. It's pretty cool.
Follow-up question to that. Does that mean that YouTube is creating an RSS feed and then sending that audio podcast to the podcast players?
Well, to my knowledge now, and I need to ask our team members who manage certain things, is that functionality is not yet available, and I don't know if it ever will be. I think that audio is so powerful that YouTube realized that they want to tap into this, and they don't want all the people to go to Spotify and all the other giants, and they wanted to have their own platform that also allows people to consume audio. And if somebody is already doing a YouTube video podcast episode, they wanted to give a very easy way to be on that platform without the need of re-uploading the audio. So I think that's how I understand what's happening right now.
Okay. Thank you. Still feel like audio podcasting and video podcasting are still two different worlds because I don't feel like you can take a video and put it on with an RSS feed on the audio players. Would you agree with that?
If I may, I want to challenge you.
Okay.
So I think it is possible. We do it with the Brain Fitness podcast. We do it with Dr. Kim's podcast that I showed you and with other podcasts as well. It's possible. The problem and the important aspect to consider is what is really the focus here and what is the quality. Because when somebody is sending our team, like we literally make it so easy for providers that sometimes they will be at a hotel, they will record a quick Zoom interview about something, important topic, and we coach them about the strategy, etc. But sometimes the internet connection was bad, lighting was not good, and guess what? Audio was not good as well. And now we receive it, but the podcast is so valuable that we still push it to audio platforms through the RSS feed, Red Circle, whatever. And then our audio people will not be able, no matter how they master the sound, they will not be able to make a high quality piece from it that will serve as audio podcast. It will not be Tim Ferriss' professional podcast or Joe Rogan. It really will not be. So I will put an asterisk. I will say, from my perspective, it is possible, but I will put an asterisk. If somebody wants a professional audio platforms setup and a professional audio podcast, I think they need to do it the right way.
That's fair. I appreciate that. I'm definitely not trying to back you into a corner. It's just sometimes people think they're interchangeable and they're not necessarily interchangeable. I can make an audio podcast using my recording software, right? But if I also turn on a Zoom meeting, and that's my only video recording software. I know it's not exactly like the best thing out there, but I can also take that video from Zoom and I can repurpose it as a YouTube video. I know how to do both of them, but it almost seems like it's a little bit different on the video production side. The whole point, and going back to one of your recurring themes, is what's in it for the audience, for my audience. Please know that you don't necessarily have to do both. It's okay to have a strength of being a video podcaster and leaning into your team, like Polish Your Business, and they will set you up really well. But if you want to do the audio podcast, that's fine too. You don't have to necessarily pick, but I want to encourage you to pick because you may become frustrated if you want to do both video and audio and you don't realize that it's actually double the work. Mike, any follow up comments on that?
I agree with everything that you said because we want people to know where they want to go. So if they already know, let's say it's somebody who enjoys audio podcasts, they want to do a professional podcasting job on audio platforms. They need to do it the right way. There is so much that goes into audio podcasting that I have no idea about, even though we are doing certain things on the video podcast that I know a professional coach like you, Kim, will be able to give people insights on and coach them and train them. For example, in the video podcast, the way that I see it is the easy way for two healthcare providers to have a topic about, let's say, ice or heat, or this or that. More of a high level strategy that the podcast now functions as a important piece in the overall content marketing strategy, but it's not really developed for audio. Now, the way that I understand what Kim can do for people is really professional audio setup, professional gear, voice coaching. How do you speak? When do you pause? How you should sound, thinking about the audio experience from a very, very different perspective than just editing a Zoom video. So I see them as while there are some, and it's just like marketing and branding. The marketing and branding also have a gray area where they kind of overlap, but it's not the same. And the same with audio podcasting and video podcasting. It's not the same. Is there an area where maybe from the audio platform podcast, maybe you could create a video with some AI images and now you have a video podcast? Yes, you could. Or you could have, a voice audio visualizer is what I mean. You can have an audio visualizer to show the waveform
Waveform, yes.
of the voice, upload that, and now you have a video podcast. Well, it's not a video podcast. And the same thing is true if you take a video podcast like a Zoom recording or even a Riverside recording, which is slightly better than Zoom, and you upload it to audio platforms. It doesn't really make it, or it doesn't really cut it as a professional audio platforms podcast.
I love that you talked about the gray area because there is some overlap. Like I said, I can do an audio podcast and I can record the conversation via Zoom and put out a not so great looking video. But, that's the overlap. I have to do that recording twice. I have to do it in audio and then I have to edit the video and I'm adding the subtitles and all the things and some sort of like a beginning image so that people know this is this podcast, who I am, the episode number, all the things. And I have done that on my YouTube channel. You will see those. But, anyways, gray area. I love that you brought that up. There is some overlap, but I think we've done a really good job of explaining to the audience that when you go into podcasting, if your strength is being on video and your preference is to be on video, start thinking in the direction of Polish Your Business because that is not what I do. Thanks for clarifying, Mike.
Always happy to support. And the way that we view our team as a function, we really function as extra hands and extra brains. So sometimes people have amazing skills and they love editing videos. They don't need our video editors. That's okay. That's great. But maybe they don't have custom thumbnails, SEO optimization of these videos. Maybe they don't have the YouTube strategy. Maybe they don't have the collaborating partners, or maybe they just need strategic support. So sometimes extra hands will be needed. Hey, I don't want to do all these things. So can your hands do it for me? Of course. And then sometimes it could be extra brains. Hey, can you give me an idea that you know is working for others that may be working for me as well? Because it looks like I'm going kind of like around the problem instead of just, tackling the problem and really solving it. Then we can help as extra brains. And the same thing here. If somebody is needing extra hands, especially if you're the best way that I can describe it is if you want to do videos and you know that you want to start a YouTube channel, as part of your branding strategy, as part of your marketing strategy, I strongly recommend doing a video podcast, using this as a strategic tool in your marketing and in your branding. And then when the time is right, if you decide switching to audio is great. If you already dominate that audio space and you switch to Zoom recordings and Riverside, you won't be able to hear yourself and listening to your you won't be able to listen to yourself because the quality is truly very different. And if somebody is not properly coached on audio, I think that uploading a video podcast on audio platform can also be with a little bit of a risk because people don't see you and people don't know how to communicate on audio when they have all the visuals that go along with it. So I think audio platforms, podcasting, to do it the right way, that requires a very good strategy and a professional coach.
Thank you for saying that. I agree with one big point. It is different when you cannot see the person. I specialize in audio podcasting, and my voice needs to reflect my energy and enthusiasm. And there's just so many things that you have to put into your voice to make it entertaining, as opposed to when you can see somebody. And for example, on video, if they're taking big gulping breaths, you don't care if they're breathing heavy because you want that content and you are focused on that person and what they're saying and maybe the visuals that they're using or the subtitles or all the things. You have more tools, Mike, is what I'm saying in video podcasting. I love that you have a strong preference towards video podcasting. Of course, that means you're doing the right job, you're in the right space, and that's why I'm going to continue to refer people to you. I think you're a good resource for pharmacists who are your ideal client, my pharmacists that are Dr. Awesome that would like to have a video podcast.
Fantastic. And I want to tell people that we always come back to our mission because promoting integrative healthcare means that if you do something for a healthcare provider, an amazing pharmacist who happens to be Dr. Awesome for us, and we see the value from that provider going to the public and then somebody is getting better, it really means much more to us than just having another client or just having another podcast launch or another video published. I think the whole structure and the clarity about the mission is very, very important. What goes along with this is we have to make it very easy for people to try. So we have three models for people to engage. Model number one is per project. So it's super easy. People just say, hey, I have this one project. I want to dip my toes in the water. Can you guys do it for me? It's more expensive because it's one project that we have to meet about. We have to strategize about. And so when you look at the outcome and the price for that, it's a little bit more expensive, but it allows people to test certain things. We also have the do it with you model. It's our mastermind. Do it with you would be that you and your team, if you have team members, would be doing certain things, and we give you more power, more resources, more shortcuts. And we always do this month to month. So you can decide how long you go with this. We just want, for example, you have a podcast and you're like, well, I would like to send them a link that will give them a Google form so they can upload their bio and this and that. And I want that to be automatic. Instead of doing it yourself, you can just grab ours and we can change it for you, right? Or a strategy or something else that could be a shortcut. So that's our do it with you model, where there are some meetings that you have with us, some video recording, not a lot, some video editing, not a lot. But comparatively, there is a great level of support. And there is a do it for you model, which is our most typical model currently, where we meet Dr. Awesome and they're like, listen, I'm on a mission to do something great. I'm moving 300 miles per hour. I don't have time to do any of this stuff. I can see I was referred to you by X, Y, and Z doctor. Can you guys handle all of these things that are important for me? You got it, Dr. Awesome. And we do it. And that's the more expensive model where we handle a lot for people. And it's also month to month because we want people to have flexibility.
I appreciate you talking about the different ways that my audience could work with you because I think there's at least one person listening to this who's saying, "Oh good, they can do it for me." Because there's so many full-time pharmacists who have families and other interests and, self-care obligations. And to have somebody like you to take that off their plate is a huge, huge help.
Well, it's always our pleasure to support and to figure out what is actually matching the needs. And that's why we always have a consultation at the beginning. We try to figure out, are we the right fit? Are the expectations realistic? Because if somebody expects us, for example, the do it for you model does require support from the healthcare provider. If you don't show up for your podcast, who's going to record? It's not going to be us, right? So there are certain things that are required also for us, because when we decide to work with somebody, we want that person or that company to be a major success. It makes us feel good. It makes us look good. So it's funny because as we are having these consultations with people, sometimes I tell them, I know you're evaluating me, you're evaluating us. And as you're evaluating me, I'm also evaluating you because I want you to succeed. And it may be a surprise to a lot of people, but in the current setup that we have, we do say no quite a bit because I just see that somebody has unrealistic expectations. And from my experience, if somebody expects me to track every single metric, to do everything perfectly fine, to have the perfect strategy, perfect, before we even launch the first episode, I know we are not the right people because if they're looking for imperfections, they will find something. And I don't want to be stressed. I like to work with a smile. And we know what we do well, and we also know what we don't specialize in. And I think it all comes down to effective communication. And just like you said, it's the transformative power of that communication that makes a big difference.
Like you said, with your ideal client avatar, you like people that have that open mindset and they have good communication skills. And I really like that you invite people who still are kind of raw to come on board with you and let you clarify their message with them. I think that's really cool that you want to be part of that process. I think you've done it enough that you're good at it too.
It's
Wouldn't you
so
agree?
rewarding. Kim, it's so rewarding when you see someone who at the beginning said, I don't know because I never have done X, Y, and Z, and I don't know if I'm going to be good at it. And I know that people look at me like this, but actually, what I feel deep inside is that. And when you see that person and you compare to somebody who is on stage with a powerful brand a few years later, and sometimes we still work with them. Sometimes we switch to per project. Sometimes we switch from the do it for you to do it with you. It doesn't really matter, but just knowing it's almost like you did something on your mission. You had this birth of a new brand or additional support, and you just see the success that is going forward and helping people. There's a great level of pleasure working with people like this. So of course we want to support the process of developing this, because that's where a lot of fun is, and actually that's where a lot of appreciation is, because 5 years later, 5 years will have gone by, no question about it. So from the 5 years later perspective, if people look back 5 years and they see what really matters for me right now and how much Mike and his team contributed to what I have now that I know is bringing me a lot of value, having these conversations is a lot of fun.
I bet it must be very professionally gratifying to be part of those transformations. That's what I hear you saying. And
It's super
that's
cool.
exciting. I like doing that too, Mike.
It's super cool. It's you
Yeah.
develop true friendships. You have, and that's why I want to encourage people to do podcasting with a team, without a team, yourself. Even if you have to mess up a few different times, that's completely okay. But podcasting is a way to develop amazing relationships, and without relationships, there is no business that can succeed long term if it doesn't focus on giving value to the end consumer and also to people next to you, other providers. And I think podcasting can be a very, very powerful tool. And I truly wish everybody great success. And I just want to share a few shortcuts if it's possible.
Those are almost great words to end on, but I got to ask, is there anything else that you'd like to share before we wrap this up?
I'll go with Nike. Just do it.
I love that. People need encouragement, and those are very encouraging words.
Just do, and when I say just do it, it doesn't mean call me and reach out to me. Just do it. Just start. Just move forward. Smile. We have one life here that we know about, right? That is for certain. We are here. Let's do something with the life that feels good. I think it's much better to try something and adjust the strategy than to wonder what if. What if I tried? I was thinking about it, but I didn't, and my friend did, and now he's successful, and I'm not as successful. Maybe I would be, maybe I wouldn't be. If you try, and by the way, if you try it and it's not for you, at least you will know.
At least you will know, and you'll have a story about that time you tried to have a
That's
podcast,
right.
right?
One day you're gonna be on stage and you're gonna be able to tell this story, and maybe you will go completely different direction. But it's I think it's a lot of fun. Podcasting is a beautiful way to also bring people together authentically. Because when you have this typical 1 minute promo video, while it could be an amazing project, I don't know how people are connecting with you from that video. It seems like a commercial. It seems like, it's that perfect piece that we spend hours or days or months to prepare. But when you have a podcast interview, you really can meet people as they are. And I think it brings people much closer together. It allows for that authenticity to just be there. You can feel it in the conversation. And I think that's a magnet for your patients, for your clients, for your collaborating partners. This is a magnet that will just make people want to be more around your energy. And what's a better way to show this energy to the world, to really broadcast it? I think podcasting is pretty awesome.
I agree with you there. Just do it.
Just do it.
Thanks, Mike, for being here on the Pharmacist's Voice podcast. Take care.
You are welcome. And big thank you. You are doing amazing things. And while you were asking me questions and you were making people feel like I'm the expert, I will tell you there is so much that I can learn from you that I told you off camera, or off microphone, I should say. There's so much. I appreciate you. I admire you. And there is so much that you bring to the world with great clarity, with amazing communication, and with just so high quality. Seriously, it's a pleasure to have a conversation with you, and I want to know more about you. I need to feature you.
Oh, well, thank you, Mike. Yeah, this has been a pleasure. I think you and I share one brain. Actually, we have a lot of the same insights and appreciations about podcasting, and this has been a big pleasure for me. Thank you so much for being on my podcast today.
Thank you, Kim. I appreciate you.
Thanks again to Polish Mike for being my guest today on the Pharmacist's Voice podcast, episode 299. We covered a lot of podcasting topics today, and I really enjoyed our conversation. I hope you did too. I hope you now feel excited about podcasting, whether it's audio or video or both. And I also hope you feel inspired to start your own podcast now too. If you are Dr. Awesome and you are interested in using video podcasting for marketing, branding, and business development, reach out to Polish Mike for a consultation today. Thank you for listening to episode 299 of the Pharmacist's Voice podcast. You can find links to Polish Mike and Polish Your Business in the show notes on thepharmacistvoice.com. Also, in those show notes for episode 299, you will find a link to my free ebook and audiobook titled Pharmacist Podcaster, a podcast planning guide for pharmacy professionals. Also, you'll find my podcasting course, my private coaching link, and more. Lots of links today. Everything you need is on thepharmacistvoice.com. If you know someone who is interested in starting a podcast, whether it's an audio podcast or a video podcast, please share this episode with them. And if you like this podcast, please subscribe to or follow the Pharmacist's Voice podcast on your favorite podcast player and YouTube to get each new episode right when it comes out. Thanks for listening today. I will talk to you next week.